Hello, let's wait for people to join. So in 1 minute, I will start the waiting room, and then people will have to stay in the waiting room because of the problems we had earlier. So it's usually the tradition to say Happy Vesak, and we exchange cards in Sri Lanka. I used to make those cards organically to... Hi, Antonio. Great to see you. And thank you for the video, the video realization, and I shared that with children. They loved it. They really enjoyed it. And I mentioned your name to give credits to you for sharing that. So thank you.
Happy Vesak to you, Hamdru.
Happy Vesak, Ajit Mahatmya. So we really cheated on Vesak lanterns. We had the ones we prepared last year. So we hang them, but nothing in my room. They're in the shrine room area.
You should put one in your room.
Right. I think that would be wonderful. I should steal one from the shrine room then. So, yeah, that's a valid question to ask. I remember sitting in the open and making these Vesak lanterns and putting a candle inside.
Yes,
So
yes. We remember.
Yeah, we remember when we were children. Yeah.
Right. And next morning, we still want to see that it survived. You know, the wind comes and sometimes it may get burnt.
Yeah.
And then our grandma saying, it's impermanent. You know, that's how we learn Buddhism.
And the rain too, during
Yeah,
May, month of May, we get a lot of rain.
right. That's
Yeah.
right. May we can have thunderstorms in Sri Lanka.
Yeah. Oh.
Then we learn the true teaching of impermanence right there.
Yeah.
So, okay, we got 25 participants here. That's wonderful. This is a makeup session for the event that we missed on Monday. I had to give a talk to some audience in Malaysia, so that's why I canceled the event. They were overlapping to some extent. I didn't really want to put my brain through too many events. So, but then...
That's totally fine. No problem.
Yeah, we are fine.
Right. That's very nice of you to say that. So now here we are on Wednesday, which is perfectly the day of Vesak. In Sri Lanka, it's starting already. it's the dawn of Vesak in Sri Lanka. Vesak is the most significant day in Buddhist calendar. The birth of Prince Siddhartha and him becoming an ascetic at the age of 29, and then reaching enlightenment when he was 35. And then he taught for 45 years, and when he was 80, he passed away, completely leaving this body like a flame, and it doesn't go anywhere. It just vanishes when no more rebirth conditions. When all the conditions for rebirth have been vanished, it does not exist. So that's the significance of Vesak. So all these 3 days happened on the full moon day of month May, because of that, people celebrate this day across the globe by making Vesak lanterns, and they have designated Vesak zones, and they also build pandals, a very large artwork with stories, a birth story depicting past life of the Buddha. And there are competitions in school level or police ground level or town level. So because people try to be very creative over there with these things. Usually they relate to Buddha's, something to do with the Buddha, him taming someone, or the snake Muchalinda kind of sheltering him when he was in meditation. And all these events have one purpose, to evoke faith in your mind. So people also generously share free food with people in Sri Lanka. That also happens on the street. They make a collection, or donors support these events, because people will be on pilgrimage for one whole week, and you get free food. Huge lines, lining up. And I remember, especially in down south, we started lining up under the Nilwala bridge. I think it's called Mahanama Bridge in Sri Lanka, in Matara. So it took us about 45 minutes staying in line, and delicious food smell comes, and you get a nice portion of freshly cooked food. This was organized by Sri Lankan police. So those are great memories. But here we are with the pandemic. Things like that also happens, and they also remind us of impermanence once again. And in a situation like this, doctors, nurses, they have come together in one spirit. So I see messages everywhere supporting them and encouraging them for their heroic effort to keep people alive and find a vaccine, or pharmaceutical industries working on certain projects. So all these people are doing great things. So this is a time to come together in one spirit, and also a time to think about, we usually look for attachments, and now on the day of Vesak, we need to look for freedom from attachment. So instead of looking for attachments, we look for the freedom from attachment. And that is why I offered the option of, if any one of you wish to take 3 refuges and 5 precepts, today is a wonderful day to do that. And when you do that, you do it for lifetime. You don't do it just for one night, you do it for lifetime. And I can share the screen with you. Let's see how it works. Here you find the 3 refuges and 5 precepts. And by doing this, you become a Buddhist. And that's very simple. There's no big ceremony. And we can also give you a Buddhist name if you want, but you can just be happy with whatever the name you have. But it is, I've done it before, we give a name so that, they can associate with that name in their Buddhist environments and events and ceremonies if they want. All right, so if this is the first time, please look at the screen and you will be able to take 3 refuges and 5 precepts. We will begin from now on. Somebody is joining. That makes us 27 participants. Good turnout for a Wednesday. So please put your palms together. We will first pay homage to the Buddha. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Buddham saranang gacchami. Dhammang saranang gacchami. Sanghang saranang gacchami. Dutiyampi buddhang saranang gacchami. Dutiyampi dhammang saranang gacchami. Dutiyampi sanghang saranang gacchami. Tatiyampi buddhang saranang gacchami. Tatiyampi dhammang saranang gacchami. Tatiyampi sanghang saranang gacchami. So here's the translation. Homage to him, the Blessed One, the Worthy One, the perfectly enlightened one. Homage to him, the Blessed One, the Worthy One, the perfectly enlightened one. Homage to him, the Blessed One, the Worthy One, the perfectly enlightened one. To the Buddha for refuge I go, to the Dhamma for refuge I go, to the Sangha for refuge I go. For the second time, to the Buddha for refuge I go, for the second time to the Dhamma for refuge I go, for the second time to the Sangha for refuge I go. For the third time to the Buddha for refuge I go, for the third time to the Dhamma for refuge I go. For the third time to the Sangha for refuge I go. The 5 precepts. Panatipata veramani sikkhapadang samadhiyami. Adinnadana veramani sikkhapadang samadhiyami. Kamesu miccācara veramani sikkhapadang samadhiyami. Musavada veramani sikkhapadang samadhiyami. Surameraya majjapama daṭṭhāna veramani sikkhapadang samadhiyami. Here's the English translation. I undertake to abstain from taking. I undertake the precept to abstain from taking life. I undertake the precept to abstain from taking what is not given. I undertake the precept to abstain from sexual misconduct. I undertake the precept to abstain from false speech. I undertake the precept to abstain from taking intoxicants. Perfect. So now we will do some meditation. Please prepare in whatever place you are, wherever you are. It's great to do some meditation. We will do for about, we'll go from now it's 7:45. We'll stop somewhere around 8:10, leaving enough time for the discussion today. You will begin by closing your eyes. Whether you are sitting in a chair or in a cushion somewhere, you feel comfortable in your posture. If you hear something, see the details of it. Pay attention to it, not blaming it. It's not the blaming you, it's you blaming the blame. So it's best we don't get attached to the silence. Whatever comes, that's happening now, and you may pause to see the details that you never saw in that experience before. You will do a body scanning, starting from the top of your head, relaxing every part of your body to feel grounded, to feel comfortable and feel cared for this body. And your forehead, the back of your head. You may move and relax, sensing the blood flow in your body, the warmth, the texture as you feel, wherever you feel. Putting a little gentle smile on your face, your lips decorated with a smile. Your facial expressions are serene, full of love and compassion towards the world, the beings out there in the world. Pay attention to your neck, aligning with the back of your head and and your backbone, the skeleton, the spine. Pay attention to your shoulders, their presence, and your elbows, your arms and your palms and fingers. Are they resting? Please allow them to. No pressure, but leisure. Take a deep breath in and release. As you breathe in and breathe out, notice where the breath stops and begins again in between the breaths. Notice these places, the details. As you fill your lungs with fresh air, may you be healed from illnesses. May your body be cleansed. You may also relax your stomach, your pelvis, the waistline, and the thighs, your knees, your shin bones, the ankles, the soles of your feet, and the toes. Feeling grounded here and now. When did this last inhale happen? I think they happen right now, not in the past, not in the future. It's a great way to come to the present awareness. Mindfully, you breathe in, mindfully, you breathe out. Releasing all the tensions and steering away from agitations, making space in your heart base for tranquility and peace and calmness. You simply breathe in and breathe out. Mindfully, you breathe in, mindfully, you breathe out. Our goal is freedom from attachment. So when thoughts of attachment arise, we don't focus on it. Just as you exhale, let it disappear, let it be. You don't zoom in. Observe whether your breath is long or short, or medium. So going into more details. Sometimes it's long, sometimes it is short. Breathe in, breathe out, experiencing the whole body, noticing the movement that takes place with each breath you take. Mindfully you breathe in, mindfully you breathe out. Noticing the space between each breath, the movement, the tranquility that arises. Breathe in, breathe out, relaxing the body. Breathe in, breathe out, tranquilizing the body and slowly moving to the mind, experiencing the mind in whatever way it notices tranquility or joy or freedom. You breathe in and you breathe out. Experiencing joy, you breathe in, you breathe out. Gladdening the mind, you breathe in and you breathe out. So usually we do the metta chanting on Wednesdays. Since we have not done it in a while, let's do it. Because many of you may not have the printed version with you, and so I decided to play a recording also from Abhayagiri Monastery. So you will hear it in a second. This is what should be done by one who is skilled in goodness and who knows the path of peace. Let them be able and upright, straightforward and gentle in speech, humble and not conceited, contented and easily satisfied, unburdened with duties, and frugal in their ways, peaceful and calm and wise and skillful, not proud and demanding in nature. Let them not do the slightest thing that the wise would later reprove, wishing in gladness and in safety. May all beings be at ease, whatever living beings there may be, whether they are weak or strong, omitting none, the great or the mighty, medium, short or small, the seen and the unseen, those living near and far away, those born and to be born. May all beings be at ease. Let none deceive another or despise any being in any state. Let none through anger or ill will wish harm upon another, even as a mother protects with her life her child, her only child. So with a boundless heart should one cherish all living beings, radiating kindness over the entire world, spreading upwards to the skies and downwards to the depths, outwards and unbounded, free from hatred and ill will, whether standing or walking, seated or lying down, free from drowsiness. One should sustain this recollection. This is said to be the sublime abiding. I'm upholding to fixed views, the pure-hearted one, having clarity of vision. I'm not sure if I was muted in that. I see a message that says my speaker is muted. Can you hear me? On Zoom?
Yes,
I can hear you.
Perfect.
Yes.
And you heard the chanting?
Yes. Yes.
Oh, good. It's beautiful. It's much better than we do it sometimes. You know, we are a little slow when we do the chanting in our actual groups when you used to meet, but the recording is very well done. All right, so to the sutra today. I shared a little introduction so we can, I'm sorry, I have to, the iPad fell out, so I have to put it back in running. I should be careful not shaking the screen because the iPad is leaning against the screen. All right, so this is the little introduction I shared. So when I try to share the screen, it's only showing half of it for me. So I think this is good. About the sutra, the Dhammacakkappavattana Sutta. So this is the first sermon of the Buddha. The way to say it is Dhammacakka. So you see the word cha is C-A in Buddhism, not C-H-A in Pali language. So Dhammacakkappavattana Sutta became Dhammacakkappavattana Sutta. So Dhamma is doctrine, the teaching. Chakka is the wheel. Pavattana is setting in motion the wheel of Dhamma. There was no Dhamma wheel running, it wasn't moving, and what the Buddha did by teaching this discourse was to set it in motion, set the wheel running. The setting in motion of the wheel of the Dharma Sutra is a Buddhist text that is considered by Buddhists to be a record of the first sermon given by the Gautama Buddha. The main topic of this sutta is the Four Noble Truths, Chatu Arya Satya, which refer to and express the basic orientation of Buddhism in a formulaic expression. So it has a formula, like you have an illness and here's the remedy, this is how you take it, and obviously the cause of illness. So illness, the cause of illness, the remedy, and this is the dose that you take that medicine. So that's the formula. This sutta also refers to the Buddhist concepts of the middle way. That's the way, that's the path. And also it talks about impermanence and dependent origination. It asks like what is suffering, and it says birth is suffering, and there's a list of things. And that list can be found in the causes of origin of suffering, the dependent co-origination. According to the Buddhist tradition, the Buddha delivered this discourse on the day of Asalha Puja after his enlightenment. So in a deer sanctuary in Isipatana. This was 7 weeks after he attained enlightenment. His audience consisted of 5 ascetics who had been his former companions, Kondanya, Vappa, Baddiya, Mahanama, and Assaji. So this is the sutra, and this is Venerable Ananda Jyoti translating this as the discourse that set the Dhamma wheel rolling. He's an English monk. He translates these sutras, and he has this website, ancientbuddhisttext.net, which is a very, very good resource that I use every day. So, all right. Thus have I heard Ekang Samyam Bhagava. At one time, the fortunate one, Bhagava, Varanasiyang Viharati, dwelling near Varanasi in Benares, now called Benares. Or it's called Varanasi, I think still. Isipatane Migadaye, in the deer park at Isipatana. There it was that the fortunate one addressed the group of 5 monks. Satrako Bhagava Panchavagye Bhikkhu Amantesi. And then he said, there are these 2 extremes, monks. Dveme Bhikkave Anta. That one who has gone forth, which means to someone who has become a monk, ought not to associate with. A monk should not associate with these 2 extremes. You should not go to the extreme levels of any of these. So, pabbajitena na sevitabba. Yochayang kamesu kamasukhallikan yoga. One of the extremes is devotion to the pleasure and happiness in sense pleasures. enjoying the five sense faculties to the extreme level. Like you start seeing things and you don't stop looking at it. You are attached, you are looking for more and more and more. You start listening to things and you never stop. You keep going on and on. And that's an extreme, which the Buddha says, don't do that. The other extreme is, so there is a way he explains the first extreme. He says, looking for sensual pleasure is low, vulgar, worldly, ignoble, and not connected with the goal. Hino, which means low, it's a low practice. Gammo, very vulgar. Potujjaniko belongs to the worldly people, not for monks. Anaryo, not noble, it's ignoble, not good for a great mind. Anatta Sanghito. Atta is the goal, Atta is something meaningful. Anatta Sanghito means, Sanghita here means connected with. So connected with Anatta, connected with something not good, which in other words, not connected with the goal. So that's there. And then he shows the other extreme, Yochayang Atta Kilamathan Yoga. And this devotion to self-mortification. And he has a way to some set of adjectives on that too. He says, Dukkho, the devotion to self-mortification, giving extreme suffering to the body, is painful, ignoble, and not connected with the goal. And he did both these. Imagine an ascetic having gone through 6 years of self-mortification, sleeping on thrones and sleeping on, standing on one foot, thinking that this will help him to reach enlightenment, to end defilements. But he realized that these things didn't help. And also he had lived a life of luxury, and he knows that it didn't help. And when he came back to the five former friends, they thought the ascetic Siddhartha went back to luxury. And that may be why when he begins the discourse, he says, going to luxury is low, vulgar, worldly. I mean, not really luxury here, but going to the extreme of sensual pleasure. He wanted to convince that he's not choosing that path, which is low, vulgar, worldly, ignoble, and not connected with the goal. Right. And then he says, not having approached either of these two extremes, monks, middle path, middle practice, was awakened by the realized one. So what I understood is the middle path as the path that works, which produces vision, chakku karani, here's the word chakku karani, produces knowledge, jnana karani, this is the word jnana karani, upasamaya, which leads to peace, abhinyaya. Abhinya is deep knowledge, so which leads to deep knowledge, and sambodhaya, it leads to complete awakening, and nibbanaya samvartati. So nibbana samvartati, here is the Pali, it leads to nibbana. You get, this is like so he's just laying the premise, he's just showing what works. The Eightfold Path leading to these things leads to peace. If you are on Eightfold Path, in every situation you find some peace, you find some relief. And that's how you know that you are on the path. You don't really fight with situations because you realize that you are on the Eightfold Path. We'll discuss what the Eightfold Path is towards the end. And then he's asking this question, now what is this middle practice, monks? he says, it is this noble path. Like the fire alarm is going on. Not sure why. The other two monks might check why. It is this noble path with 8 factors as follows. Right view, right thought, right speech, right action, right livelihood, right endeavor, right mindfulness, right concentration. So these 8, which are very well known among Buddhists. So I will come back to it. This is just the list. This is the middle practice, monks, that was awakened to by the realized one, which produces vision, produces knowledge, which leads to peace, deep knowledge, complete awakening, and nibbana. And then he begins to say, now this, monks, is the noble truth of suffering. He just begins with the first truth, the noble truth of suffering. He says, birth is suffering, old age is suffering, sickness is suffering, death is suffering, being joined to what is not dear is suffering, being separated from what is dear is suffering, also not to obtain what one longs for is suffering, which means you long to have something, you long to get something and you don't get it, and there is suffering. In brief, the 5 aggregates that provide fuel for attachment are suffering. So 5 aggregates, in brief, is suffering. What are the 5 aggregates? Rupa, Vedana, Sanya, Sankhara, Vijnana. Don't forget, just ignore the Pali here. Form, feelings, perceptions, volitional formations, and the aggregate of consciousness. So those are the 5 aggregates that produces attachment again and again, and all that causes suffering. And then he says, now, monks, this is the noble truth of the arising of suffering. This is how suffering arises. What is the arising of suffering? The craving. When you have craving, the Buddha says, tanha pono bhavika. You see the Pali here. Craving which leads to continuation in existence. It's because you cling to something at death. You continue to exist again and again. And the craving is connected with enjoyment and passion, greatly enjoying this and that. Craving comes in different forms. You have craving for sensual pleasure, craving for continuation, craving for discontinuation. So the first one, craving for sensual pleasure, I think it's very clear. Pleasing, looking for objects that are pleasing, and that's done through your 5 sense doors. And the craving for continuation is like you want to be born again and again. You want to go to heaven for sensual pleasure. And craving for discontinuation usually is based on wrong view. Because you have wrong view, you think that there is no continuation after death. So you begin enjoying this life as much as possible. And that enjoyment leads to suffering, more suffering. And then the third truth. Now this, monks, is the noble truth of the cessation of suffering. So he says, what is the cessation? It is the complete fading away and cessation without a remainder of that craving. When craving has been ceased to exist, remainderless, without any remainder, nothing remains. No craving whatsoever. No craving in the subtlest form, not even to this life. And the liberation, letting go, release, and non-adherence. See the Pali here. I think I love this part. Chago patini saggo mutti analev. Chago is, one way to say relinquishment, liberation. And Patinissago, letting go. Mutti, release. And Analeo. Analeo is non-attachment. Himalaya is where snow lies. There is so much snow in Himalaya. So Anale is no ale, no attachment. These words have been, are charged words, and they have so much power. If you study each of these words, you find so much wealth in it as a practitioner. And then he begins to say, now this, monks, is the noble truth of the practice leading to the end of suffering, the fourth truth. Right view, right thought, right speech, right action, right livelihood, right endeavor, right mindfulness, and right concentration. All right, so that list came back. If you look at it carefully again, what is right view? Right view basically is knowing and accepting that there is this wonderful truth that the suffering continues. There is a truth of suffering, and the cause of suffering is craving, and there is a way out of it, and there is a path leading towards suffering. Not leading towards suffering, there is a path leading towards enlightenment, freedom from suffering. And when you understand that, there is your right view. You are on the path. When you begin accepting that, when you begin processing your thoughts according to that framework, you are seeing, you are coming to right view. Majority people, they don't really have that view. They are taught different things and they are clouded, hindered by these views. In Buddhism, the Buddha says, don't get trapped into views. Just as we were chanting the Metta Sutta, we found the Tincha Anupagama, not falling into wrong view. And right thought, the second one, this has to deal with, thoughts of letting go, basically renunciation, thoughts of non-harming, you don't harm anybody, thoughts of freedom from ill will, freedom from anger. So when you have these thoughts, you are on the path, you travel far in the path towards Nibbana. And next one, right speech, which includes texting and emailing and everything, right? So when you choose the right words, it's very pleasing. Kanna Sukang, it's pleasing to the ear. Madhubani, it's very sweet. And other times you'll know when to be silent so you don't hurt anybody. It's very hard practice. But that's part of your, that's a way to stay in peace. When you are in peace, your words are peaceful, so you are not causing to suffering to yourself or to others. And next one is right action. This includes the 5 precepts you took: abstaining from killing, abstaining from stealing, abstaining from sexual misconduct, abstaining from telling lies, and abstaining from taking intoxicants. So right action. Action that leads to your own well-being and well-being of others. Right livelihood is usually choosing a lifestyle that is non-harmful, not selling liquor, not selling meat, not selling weapons, not selling poison, and not selling animals, so, or labor, righteous way of living. Then you don't have any remorse. You can have you don't have a guilty mind of doing any of that. You have a clear conscience. Clear conscience is a soft pillow. Right, so Samma Vayama, you make right endeavor. The right endeavor is to endeavor to reach enlightenment. So you make sure you are observing your mind, your thoughts, and you are keeping it focused on your goal. In doing that, you eliminate a lot. We discussed that in our Girimananda discussion, which was beautiful in certain places when you have sensual thoughts. Nadivaseti, you don't tolerate it. Pajahati, you abandon it. Vinodeti, you eradicate it. You don't entertain in it. Byanti karoti, you let it fade away. Anubhavang gameti, you let it, you kind of kill it, so you don't let it live. So that's the right endeavor. That's the way to find peace. Otherwise, you fall into attachment and you want it, and that it creates suffering to someone who is focused on the goal. Samma Sati, just as we did the meditation, today we focused on right mindfulness, not focusing on the wrong stuff. We focused on the right stuff, things that are not arousing sensual pleasure, such as our inhaling and exhaling, which was wonderful. And right concentration, this is why this is like a doorway to jhanas, deeper levels of meditation, and deeper knowledge, abhinyaya, true knowledges and awakening. You come to awakening through this practice. So this is where he talks about his own realization. He had this insight. This is the noble truth of suffering. To me, monks, regarding these previously unheard of things, vision arose, knowledge arose, wisdom arose, understanding arose, light arose. So the Pali for that is this. Chakkung Udapadi, vision arose, Jnanang Udapadi, knowledge arose, Panya Udapadi, wisdom arose, Vijja Udapadi, understanding arose, Aloka Udapadi, light arose. And about the second truth, he says, now to which this is the noble truth of suffering refers. Suffering itself ought to be fully known. This is not the second one. About the first truth, he realized, what should we do about dukkha? What should we do about this truth of suffering? There needs to have this action taken about it. So this is the action. You have the truth, and this is the action. Ought to be fully known. Dukkha is fully known. That birth is dukkha, the aging is dukkha. This needs to be, you put your thoughts, you consider it thoroughly, deeply, and all you need to do about dukkha is to fully know it. That this is how suffering arises. Beautiful. And so knowing that, regarding these previously unheard things, vision arose, so he repeats the same thing. And then he had the vision that it has been fully known. So first you know that this is suffering. Second, you know what to be done with it. It is to be fully known. And now third, it has been fully known. He came to realize that now I have understood it fully. So you look at one truth in three ways. First, you know what it is. You know what suffering, what that noble truth is. You know what to be done with it. And you know whether it has been done or not. So this is how the four truths apply to your practice. You don't practice dukkha, you just realize dukkha. And you realize that you have now realized it, you have understood it, you have fully in detail, you have known it. So there's no burden in that. Nothing to practice in there, it's just knowing it, realizing. So some people say the Buddha, they misinterpret the Buddha's teachings. They say the Buddha says life is suffering. That's not true. You didn't see that in here. He said there are different things that causes this suffering, right? So he said there is suffering in life. There is also happiness in life. He doesn't deny that. So we should never say life is suffering and that it is a true statement of the Buddha. That's not true. Right. Now we go to the second truth. This is the arising of suffering. So that's the second truth. Craving arises, and that is how suffering arises. And about that, the wisdom arose in him. That's the first way to. That's the first way to know the second truth, the craving. And it ought to be given up. That should be given up. Craving should be given up. So he realized the action pertaining to that realization, right? There is the arising of suffering. Suffering arises because of craving. It ought to be given up. And then here he says, it has been given up. The action has been done. So now we found, with the first one, we found 3 ways of looking at that truth. And now with the second one, you found 3 ways of looking at that truth. Now you have found 6 ways of dealing with the first true truths, the first 2 truths. Now the third truth is the cessation of suffering. And it's previously unheard. Nobody taught about cessation of suffering this way. And he had the vision and knowledge arisen. And he says, cessation to be fully experienced. It should be experienced. Right. First you understood that there is cessation, and the second he realizes it has to be fully experienced. And then he has the vision that has been experienced, now that he has experienced it. So those are the 3 ways of dealing with cessation. First, you know there is cessation. Second, you know it needs to be experienced. Third, you know it has been experienced. So now we found 9 ways of looking at it. And this is the path, practice going to the cessation of suffering. That's the 4th truth. That's unheard of. And he had the vision about it. He had the knowledge about it. He got the wisdom, understanding, and light. And that it ought to be developed. You need to develop this path. The 8-fold path needs to be developed. And then he had the knowledge that it has been developed. Those are the 3 ways looking at it. You have, there's a path leading to suffering, that's the truth. And it has to be developed, it has to be cultivated, taking individual responsibility, and that he has cultivated it, he has developed it. So these 3 ways of looking at the 4th truth. So you found 12 ways, and he at the end says, Evang tiparivattang dwadasakara. In 3 ways, 12-fold. What are the 3 ways? 12-fold we understood. 3 ways. I have a chart prepared by Professor Kanti here. So in this chart, you see Tiparivartan, she has highlighted on the top the 3 circles of knowledge. So the left column here is Dukkha Satcha, Dukkha Samudaya Satcha, Dukkha Nirodha Satcha, Dukkha Nirodha Gamini Patipada Satcha. So the 4 truths. And the first cycle is the knowledge of the truth. First, you need to understand the 4 truths. Second, you need to understand the second cycle, which is what should be done with these 4 truths. With each, you have to, the dukkha has to be realized, craving has to be abandoned, the cessation has to be realized, experienced, and the 4th one, the path needs to be developed, right? What should be done? The 3rd cycle is whether it has been done or not. Usually it's called Khatta Jnana, that it has been done. Kata means done. For Buddha, he realized the dukkha and that he abandoned the craving, and with the fourth one, he experienced the cessation, and with the third one, he experienced the cessation. With the fourth part, he cultivated, developed the path. These are the, Tiparivattan, 3 ways of looking at. Dwadasakaran, 12 ways, 3 cycles, 12 ways of looking at the Four Truths. Beautiful. All right, so going back. And he says this beautiful thing. He says, I didn't say I am the Buddha until I realized these things. This is how he says it. For as long as to me, monks, in regard to these 4 noble truths, turned like this in 3 ways, 12-fold, knowledge and insight as it really is was not quite clear. For that long, monks, I did not declare to the world with its gods, Mara and Brahma. Mara is the evil one. Brahma, as they say, is the supreme, the most powerful divine being. He didn't declare to this generation with its ascetics and Brahmins, princes and men, that I was fully awakened with unsurpassed, complete awakening. But then he says, when monks to me in regard to these 4 noble truths turned like this in 3 ways and 12-fold, knowledge and insight as it really is was quite clear, then monks, I did declare to the world with its gods and all the list of people that I was fully awakened with unsurpassed, complete awakening. This is beautiful. He didn't want to claim a state until these were fully realized, experienced. He didn't say he is the Buddha. We have fake Buddhas now, right? Different monks wanting attention. They say, I am the Buddha, I am the Arahant, I should, my statues should be built. So when things like that happen, you need to realize that this is how the Buddha did it. Until he knew it clearly, he didn't declare that he was the Buddha. To me, knowledge and seeing arose. Sure is my freedom of mind. This is my last birth. Now there is no continuation of existence. As soon as this was taught, what happened is that there was a first attainment. The disciple in that audience realized what he was talking about. Idang avocha bhagava, the fortunate one said this. Attamana Panchavagya Bhikkhu and the group of 5 monks were uplifted and greatly rejoiced in what was said by the fortunate one. Imasmincha pana veya karnasming bhanyamani. Moreover, as this sermon was being given, Ayasmato Kondanyasa to Venerable Kondanya, Virajang Vitamala, the dust-free, stainless, Dhamma Chakkung Udapadi, vision of the Dhamma arose. This must be true, that this should be doable. This makes sense. That's what, he was like, this makes sense. This is the way out. And I want to do it. I agree with it. That's what he experienced. This is how he had the Dhamma Chakku, the Dhamma eye. The way to dust freed to stainless. He says, Yankinchi Samude Dhamma, whatever has the nature of arising, Sabbantang Nirodha Dhammanti, all that has the nature of ceasing. This is how he had the, Kondanya had the Dhamma eye, the Dhamma Chakku. And then towards the end of the sutra, you find the gods of the sense world and a whole list of things. I may not go to the entire list. Now, when the Dhamma wheel was set rolling by the Buddha, the earth gods let loose a cry. This is the cry. The fortunate one, while near Varanasi in the deer park at Isipatana, has set rolling the unsurpassed Dhamma wheel, and it cannot be rolled back by an ascetic or Brahmin, or by God, or by a demon, or deity, or by anyone in the world. Having heard the cry of the earth gods, the gods called the four great kings let loose a cry. The fortunate one, while near at Varanasi in the deer park at Isipatana, has set rolling this unsurpassed Dhamma wheel, and it cannot be rolled back by an ascetic or a Brahmin, or by a god, or by a demon, or by a deity, or by anyone in the world. And then when four great kings, the four great kings were heard by Tavatimsa gods, and then they were heard by Yama gods, and they were heard by Tusita gods, and they were heard by Nimmanarati gods, and they were heard by Paranimita Vasavati gods, and then they were heard by Brahma Parisajya gods, and they were heard by Brahma Purohita gods, and they were heard by Mahabrahma gods, and then they were heard by Paritaba gods. Can you turn off your video, Tony? And they were heard by Appamanabha gods, and then they were heard by Abhasara gods, and then they were heard by Paritta Subha gods, and then they were heard by Appamana Subha gods, and then they were heard by Subhakina gods, and then Vehapala gods, and Aviha gods, and Atappa, and Sudasa, and Sudasi, and Akanittaka gods. Thus at that moment, at that second, that cry reached as far as the Brahma worlds, to the highest supreme beings. And in this 10,000 world element moved, wavered, and shook, and great and measureless light became manifest in the world, transcending the psychic power of all the gods. Then the fortunate one uttered this exalted utterance. Anya Sivatabo Kondanyo. Kondanya surely knows. Kondanya is one of the disciples of the 5 disciples who were listening to this, and the Buddha realized that he understood it. Surely Kondanya knows. Surely Kondanya knows. Iti hidang ayasmato Kondanyas. Thus to the Venerable Kondanya, Anya Kondanyo Tveva Namang Ahosi, came the name as Anya Kondanya. Kondanya, he who knows, because he is the first one to know it, and he became known as Anya Kondanya, the knower, the one who knows. So that's the end of it. I went a little fast because I wanted to kind of squeeze it to a little time frame. It's almost 9. Any questions? See, where's the question box? You can unmute yourself and ask these questions.
Yes, Bhante?
Yeah, Mark?
Could you explain right endeavor again, please?
Right endeavor usually is, the 4 ways of making effort. The 4 include, there's a set of, it's a stock phrase in sutras. The example I took earlier was from Girimananda Sutta. If you're asking about that, I can definitely explain that, and also the 4 ways. I can perhaps explain both.
Okay.
So,
okay.
Yeah.
I don't want to. If you already explained it, I can read about it. I don't want to.
No. It's very simple. I can explain it in say 2 to 3 minutes. So,
Okay. Sure.
Right. So, first, the 4 ways. This is the best way that I find in the sutras that the right endeavor has been explained. As a practitioner, so this has to do with what is wholesome and what is unwholesome, these 2 things. And when something wholesome has arisen, you cultivate it. When something wholesome has not arisen, you make conditions for it to arise. This is the first 2 right endeavors. and the other two are to do with the unwholesome. When something unwholesome has arisen, you don't indulge in it. You don't make conditions for unwholesome things to arise. That way you can keep your mind at a pure state. Is it clear?
Yes, thank you.
That's the first. That's the first way to. That's one way to explain it. But from Girimananda example, I said when, for example, sensual pleasure arises, you don't tolerate it. You abandon it. You let go of it. You make it disappear. You cease it to exist. You see, that's right endeavor. There's work to be done with, things that arise and pass away in our mind is endless. And when you begin cleansing the mind with this endeavor, slowly you are seeing, true seclusion, freedom from the sensual pleasures and attachments, and it's like muddy water coming, cleared, and you begin to see things clearly. Does that help?
Yes.
Thank
you.
Any more questions? This was proposed by Lal Mahatmya again. The same.
I have a question, Bhante.
Yeah, this is Tony.
Yes, this is Antonio. Could you explain a little bit more specifically about right living? You mentioned that if you have a living in which you sell meat or alcohol, this is not right living.
Right. Why? And can I ask a question from you? Like, why, selling liquor is bad for people?
Well, I don't drink, and I know.
No. I mean, not putting you in the center of attention. In general.
But you had mentioned that it is not right living if one is in the business of selling liquor or selling meat.
Right. Let me explain to you. Like, I visit patients in hospital as a chaplain, and I see, I've seen this, liquor shop owner who's having so much guilt. She has seen people's lives ruined by, addictions, and she's had to sell her business. And this is why, choosing right livelihood is very critical for your practice. When you are dealing with right businesses, you are actually in peace. You are in great peace. So you don't struggle with it. You can focus well, and your meditation is so good.
So I understand that, and of course, addiction is a very serious problem throughout the world, and especially alcohol addiction. But so how do you view someone who wants to practice Buddhism, but yet this person might own an establishment that might sell other things, and in addition to other things, liquor or meat, or would that?
Because the way meat industry works now, there are thousands of videos how they separate the calves from the cow, and how much pain the cow goes through, and how they are locked. And so this is like a premonition. The Buddha saw it coming, and he never wanted any sentient beings to experience that, because he regarded these beings as his own children. And then he does not want anybody. He does say that this cow was your mom in a previous birth, in whatever form it may have been your son. So how can you kill your son? And so he discouraged people in getting involved with that kind of this. People have killed, and then they also have become enlightened.
Yes.
There is that freedom in Buddhism. You don't have to be attached to your past doings. That's not Buddhism. If you don't have any escape. But he discouraged people in doing that. That includes slavery and selling weapons, selling poisonous stuff. Now you can see organic farms are coming because lots of fertilizers are actually poison, and people get cancer and sickness, all because of people choosing wrong way to live. In mass scale, they sell these things. We can go endlessly talking about these things, but let's not go there.
Thank you.
Welcome. So I see a comment. Excellent presentation by Hamdruni. Could you kindly elaborate a bit detail on Akuppa me Cheto Vimukti about first attainment? Okay, sure. Find it here. Akuppa here, the English here is sure is my freedom. Like he doesn't have any doubt about it, that his freedom of mind has been attained. And that this is my last birth, that he has been really struggling for 6 years, and even in past lives, pursuing this one goal. He was a bodhisattva, aspiring to become a rich bodhi, enlightenment. And now when he has reached that, his Cheto Vimukti, freedom of mind, that he even found how consciousness may be attached to the last perception that it can grab into. But he didn't even grab into that in meditation. When consciousness has nothing to be attached, nothing whatsoever, no feelings, no perception, in a state like that, it's like the flame that extinguishes. When the wick is gone and when the oil is ended, the flame goes. It doesn't travel anywhere. The conditions are no more, so that there is no fire. There is no continuation. So consciousness ceases. Doesn't have anything, any footing. So it's sure. It's completely confident that he is completely confident that he reached to that level. That's my response to that. Any more questions? All right, so let's end. Oh, there is a question. Oh no, it's just thanking. Right, he's sharing merits. May suffering ones be suffering free, and the fear struck fearless be. May the grieving shed all grief, and may all beings find relief. May all beings share this merit that we have thus acquired for the acquisition of all kinds of happiness. May beings inhabiting space and earth, devas and nagas of mighty power, share this merit of ours. May they long protect the Buddha's dispensation. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Happy Vesak and happy meditation.
Thank you, Hamdru.
Thank you.
Everyone, Sarnai.
Thank you, Bhante.
Sure. Thank you, Tony, for joining.
My pleasure.
Everyone, Sarnai.